We have our sizes in the results object, and we need to add them to the product variable so that we can return them back to our controller code. We could use the fetchAll method here to retrieve all the sizes, but they wouldn't be in the exact format we need. Because each size is a row in the database, fetchAll would give us a whole array for each size instead of just a simple variable. In fact, fetchAll rarely gives you the data in the format you want it. More often, you'll need to use a while loop to go through the results one at a time and format them as you go. Let me show you how that works. We execute the query here at the end of the try block. After this, we can move down here below the try catch block. We can load the first size into a variable like this. We can fetch every row one at a time by wrapping this statement in a while loop like this. This loop might seem a little strange, so let me walk you through exactly what's happening. Remember that a while loop is like a conditional, except that it runs multiple times while the condition is true. This condition is different than what we've seen so far because it doesn't just compare two values, it actually executes a command. It calls the fetch method and loads the return value into a variable named row. This will contain the first size. As long as that row variable is not false, then the condition will be considered true and the code inside the curly brackets will be executed. When the end of the while loop is reached, the flow loops back to the top. It again calls the fetch method, which this time loads the second size into the row variable. Because the row variable is still not false, it runs the code inside the loop again. At the end, it loops back and calls the fetch method a third time, loading the third size into the row variable and executing the code inside the while loop. Let's say this particular shirt has 3 sizes. After executing this block of code for the third time, it would loop back up to the condition again. It will call the fetch method again, which this time returns false because there are no more sizes to fetch. It already fetched all 3 of them. In this case, the row variable gets assigned a value of Boolean false. The while loop sees that row is false, and it now ends the while loop and skips down to the final closing curly bracket. I would describe the while loop like this. Fetch a record from results, and as long as that fetching of the record does not come back with a return value of Boolean false, execute the code inside the curly brackets. Inside the while loop, we want to add a new size to the product variable. Remember that each detail about the shirt, including the available sizes, is represented by an element inside this array. The sizes element is different than the others because it is also an array nested inside of an array. To add a new element to an existing array, you use an opening and closing square bracket. This will add a new element to the second dimension of our product variable using whatever key is available next. Inside the while loop here, the row variable contains the record from the results object that we retrieved using the fetch method, which includes the name of the size from the database. The row variable is an array which will have one element inside of it for each column in the query. In this case, the row array will have one element, size, because we only have one column specified in our select statement. We want to take the size from the row array and load it into the sizes available in our product variable, like this. Let's recap all this code here. If our first query doesn't find a shirt that matches the SKU, we return false. If we do find a shirt, then we run this query against the database to get a list of all the available sizes. We then loop through the sizes one at a time and add them to our product variable. We then return the product variable back to the controller with all the shirt details including the available sizes so that everything can be displayed on the website. Let's take a look at this in the browser. Let's refresh this last page we were looking at. You'll now see that this drop-down with the list of sizes is populated again. We have our shirt detail pages working again, and now all the product information for the Shirts for Mike website is coming from the database. We looked at joining tables, we covered how to use the PDO class's fetch method effectively, and we discussed how to filter input to prevent a SQL injection. Very nice work. Everything's working, but we have a few places where we should improve the integration with the database. We have a number of functions in our model code that call getProductsAll unnecessarily, so let's wrap up this project by improving those functions.